Pregnancy Sickness Support turns 20 in November 2022. We are the UK's only charity helping people affected by nausea and sickness in pregnancy, known as NVP, and the extreme form of the condition called hyperemesis gravidarum, or HG. For further information on HG and access to our WhatsApp and web chat services, please visit www.pregnancysicknesssupport.org.uk. You can also access our phone helpline via 024 7638 2020. To ensure no HG sufferer has to feel alone, we also offer peer support, which is delivered by our incredible network of volunteers. These volunteers have experienced the condition themselves and understand just how debilitating and life-changing HG can be. In addition to peer support, we also provide HG training for healthcare professionals and participate in new research. We also have a partner support service and a HG specialist counselling programme, which will be launching very soon. Today, I'm talking to PSS volunteer and mentor, Laura Masson. Laura, thank you so much for joining me today. I should say tonight. Thank you so much for joining me when you've had such a long and busy day. So Laura, let's just get straight down to it. Can you tell me about your first HG pregnancy?
So my first hyperemesis pregnancy was back in 2013. I found out I was pregnant at around 5 weeks and just thought that it was the usual sort of pregnancy nausea. Didn't really feel too bad to start with. But come 6 weeks, I found myself at the GP. I was unable to keep anything down. I was vomiting quite frequently. My mum had never suffered with vomiting in her pregnancy, so she didn't know what was wrong. She thought I had a bug. So I went to the GP, and the GP that I got was quite sympathetic. He said, "Oh, it doesn't sound right, so we'll just admit you to the hospital." So I was admitted to the hospital. I think my first admission was around the 7-week mark. I was dehydrated, ketones galore. I was quite weak, blistered lips, the usual kind of signs and symptoms, dizziness. But because it was my first pregnancy, I went in there not knowing what to expect. And I just believed everything they told me. Like, you're being a bit sick. We'll give you this. It'll help you. We'll send you home and you'll be great. And I'm like, yeah, sure, fine. Obviously, that's not what happened. Had a few more admissions over the time, but they kind of got worse, and I got worse because I kind of felt like I didn't know what was happening to me. I didn't know why this was prolonging for so long. And I'd asked, what is it? Why am I being so sick? And I remember just being told, oh, it's just unfortunate. You're just unlucky. It will stop, a couple more weeks and it will definitely stop. And I got to about 12 weeks and I was still taking cyclizine, flucorpazine, promethazine, and then ondansetron finally got added in. But the ondansetron obviously came with other side effects, so then I stopped that fairly quickly. And then I was kind of just left, to be honest, between hospital and my midwife. They just kind of left me medicated and just said if I had any problems to phone them. But every time you phoned them, they were like, oh, well, just up your dosage, just add this in, just take that. And at no point did anyone tell me that I had hyperemesis. I continued to vomit every day in my pregnancy. It did sort of ease off around 14 to 16 weeks. I was able to go back to work on reduced duties, but I just didn't feel great. I didn't feel right. I had a lot of headaches and tiredness, and I never got that glow that anyone spoke about. I think I stopped my medication around 26, 28 weeks. I thought, oh, well, I'm not going to take this anymore. And then by 32 weeks, I was kind of back on them, just a cyclizine, and it just kind of tided me over until labour. And I remember vomiting in labour until he was born, and then I vomited on him, and then that was kind of the end of it. It disappeared fairly quickly with Luca after labour, but I was never once told I had hyperemesis. I was never told that I had nausea, vomit, and pregnancy. It was never mentioned. I was always just told I was unfortunate or unlucky.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was awful. And the only reason I found out about it was when I had Sophia in 2019, and I read my notes, and one of the junior doctors had actually wrote in my notes one of my admissions, hyperemesis ? But nobody had ever brought that up to me. Nobody ever mentioned it.
And that was the first time you'd even heard that word?
Well, obviously I had hyperemesis with Max in 2015, and I was in Abu Dhabi, and it was private care, and I had a British doctor, and she knew about hyperemesis. So she had told me about it at that point. And obviously there'd been a bit more publicity with Kate being pregnant again at the same time, because me and Kate were pregnant at the same time for both pregnancies. So I'd heard more about it. But it was actually it wasn't my second pregnancy that I actually knew what it was and that it was an actual thing. So yeah, and then I didn't actually see it in my own medical notes until like 6 years after Luca was born, that somebody had actually questioned it and brought it up, but nobody had actually thought to bring it up to me.
As the person suffering from it?
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, how did you go about planning a second pregnancy, knowing it could be hyperemesis? But if you weren't even aware you had that condition, presumably you went into it thinking, I'll be okay this time, or...
Yeah, I mean, my pregnancies weren't planned. We always said that we would never plan a pregnancy, because that's when, you can get disheartened if things don't quite turn out right, or if you're trying for a long time. I'd had a couple of miscarriages before, like, again, not trying, but we just found out I was pregnant by chance, and then obviously lost the baby. I'm a big believer in fate, and I think that obviously it wasn't meant to be. But when the gap between Max and Luca is 22 months, so it was quite small. But I didn't know it was hyperemesis, and I didn't know it was a thing that could have carried on for future pregnancies. So when I fell pregnant with Max, I just assumed that I was unlucky and I was unfortunate, because that's all I ever got told. And it would be unlikely that it would last for so long this time round, but it was actually worse the second time round. I guess I went in there blind. I mean, if I'd known it was hyperemesis and I'd known that it might have happened again for longer or for worse, would have I gone on to have Max so soon? Would have I gone on to have him at all? I don't know. Maybe it was a blessing in disguise. But yeah, it wasn't until I was pregnant with him and then the sickness and the nausea started, that I kind of realised that I knew what was coming, unfortunately.
And having taken medication in the first pregnancy, did that help you at all in the second to be able to say, I know which ones work for me, or did it not pan out that way?
No, absolutely. I was able to say, I want to start on cyclozine. I didn't want the chlorpromazine. I didn't want the Stemetil because it tastes disgusting and it made me vomit even more. Like, it tastes like nail polish remover. I don't know why they would give anybody who's suffering with sickness Stemetil. It's awful. It tastes awful. And then because it was in the Middle East in private healthcare, you can get whatever you want because you're paying for it.
Yeah.
So it was very much, if I went into my consultant and you were seen by your consultant every 4 to 6 weeks, and your bloods were taken every 4 to 6 weeks, there was open access to fluids if you wanted it. You were paying for it, so if you wanted it, you got it. And I felt like my level of care was much better over there, but it didn't make my hyperemesis that much better. It was easier to get treatment and it was easier to feel better for a few days, but it still never really quite took the edge off of it. But I was able to go and say to my doctor, I want this, I want this, I want that, I want ondansetron, which was fine, but ondansetron was £50 a box for 10 tablets. Yeah.
My word. £50 a box for 10 tablets. So that would have lasted you how many days?
Well, I felt like I was having to ration them. So,
yeah.
Like you would take 3 a day sometimes back in the UK. And I felt like I was having to take 1 in the morning and maybe 1 at night. Or if I woke up in the morning, I'd be like, right, I'll take 1 in the morning and then I'll just fill the gaps with everything else. Just because it wasn't affordable over there, because the wages you make obviously make up for that. But I still wasn't willing to spend £50 on a box of medication for 10 tablets.
Especially when you might see it come back up shortly afterwards. Oh my word. So can you tell me about your third HE pregnancy?
Yeah, so after having Luca and Max, we kind of were happy with 2. We decided that we were just going to stop there. I think it was around November time I started feeling a bit dodgy, but I'd been working in the pub, so I thought I was just tired. We'd come up to Christmas, I'd been doing extra hours. We'd been back in the UK for about a year, so we'd spent a lot of time trying to do the house up, and it was just a busy year. I just thought it was coming to the end of a busy year. I was putting in a lot of hours, and then I woke up one morning and I just said, I just don't feel right. There's something not right. And Greg had jokingly said, oh, you're pregnant. I was like, don't be silly, like that's not going to happen. And then I did the pregnancy test at work and it came up positive. And as soon as that positive test flashed up, I was like, I'm going to be sick. It was almost like it was something switched in my brain. It was almost like I was in denial and I was fine. But as soon as I knew that I was pregnant, it was like, right, that's it, I'm going to be sick. I feel nauseous, I'm going to be sick. So we didn't really think much of it. We kind of just thought, well, it's obviously meant to be, but this is it, enough's enough sort of thing. And I continued to try and work the best I could, worked a few shifts over Christmas, and then come Hogmanay, start of January, I just felt really, really poorly. was in and out of hospital again, but this time the care was not so great. Unfortunately, I was taken in, given fluids, sent home, taken in, given fluids, sent home, taken in, given fluids, sent home. This kind of repeated every couple of days. And I remember saying to them at one point, "Can you not just keep me for longer? Because I obviously need a bit more." Like, "Oh well, we've done what we can. We've flushed the ketones and we've give you injections, and you look much brighter." And they're like, "Just try this bit of toast." And everyone knows that hospital toast is absolutely disgusting. It's dry and it's burnt and it's cold and it's stale, and there's nothing less appealing than hospital toast. So I remember one day I was felt really unwell. I felt really sick, and I just felt flustered, and I felt hot and flushed, and I was in a lot of pain. My back was aching, so I phoned my GP, got an emergency appointment, went to see him, and he was like, "Oh, your temperature's up. I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with that. You've got ketones and proteins and everything in your urine. You shouldn't have. We're going to send you to the hospital." So I was sent down to maternity hospital, was put into the early pregnancy unit. They basically just said, "Oh, you again," sort of thing. Like, "What is it this time?" And I'm like, "Well, it's obviously still the same thing. When was the last time you ate something?" I was like, "2 days ago." "Nope. You haven't. No, nobody can go for 2 days without food. You've definitely had something." I was like, "I haven't had anything. I've been just drinking Lucozade. That was the only thing I could drink, was flat Lucozade Sport." And they were like, "Why has your GP sent you here?" I was like, "There's something not right." So they sent me home. They flushed me, sent me home, and then I was taken into A&E a day later, rushed into A&E, and they said that my kidneys weren't functioning correctly, and that I needed more fluids, and that they really needed to try and balance everything out. So they sorted me out, sent me home, and then I was taken for a scan. And at this point, I'd already discussed with Greg about termination, because I decided that I'd had so much time off work, and we were a one income family at that point. It was my income only, so we were having to basically borrow money from my parents to pay the rent and to put food on the table. And I just felt like I felt like the whole world was against me, like this wasn't meant to be. So they sent me for a scan, and they were really like, they weren't very nice about it. They were just like, "Oh, look, this is your baby, and this is this and this is this, and for being so well, your baby seems to be doing okay, but there's this issue with the placenta, and it's a bit on the small side, and we'll need to take you back." So they took me back again, and they just never gave me any concrete answers. Like, was there something wrong with them? Was there not something wrong with them? Was there something wrong with placenta? Was there not something wrong with it? And I finally seen somebody who said, "Look, it's not looking good, but that's not to say that it can't change." So they offered me to wait till my 20-week anomaly scan for a more detailed scan. But by this point, I was 16, 17 weeks, and I was exhausted. My kidneys were failing. There was talk of dialysis. I missed my kids. Like, we were financially struggling. And I just got to the point where, I just looked at the nurse that was treating me, and I just said, "I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do it anymore." And she's like, "Oh, but you're quite far on, so, it would be a delivery." And I'm like, "That's fine. I'd rather go the delivery route than the surgical route, because the surgical route at that gestation is brutal. And it's just not very pleasant." So I just decided to go for the delivery route. I did it myself. I didn't take Greg, didn't take family, just did it myself. I felt like it was something that I had to do for me, because I wanted to be able to go home afterwards to my husband and my kids and not have everyone feeling sad. So I went in the morning, I went in the day before, they gave me the pill, and then I went in the next day, they gave me the other pills, and then I was left on my own basically to labour. And then when it happened, I had to push a button and someone came to inspect the contents, and that was it, really.
Oh my word.
It was an awful experience. It wasn't right, and I believe that now, since that happened, there has been changes to the whole process. Not just because of me. I think there was issues raised from other aspects. Like, if something had been wrong with the baby fully, and he wasn't growing, or if he'd had a heart defect, I would have been offered a therapeutic miscarriage in the maternity hospital. Because I ultimately made the decision to terminate, I was then put up to the normal hospital. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm really shocked by that.
Yeah, it wasn't, because they kept saying I made the decision, and I'm like, yeah, but I had to make the decision for my own sake.
Yeah.
But it's they put me up to the main hospital, and I was laboured on the gynecology ward, not by midwives, not by anybody who wanted to support me, by people who just thought that I was terminating a pregnancy for no reason, really, because they didn't have my backstory. I had to tell them my story and why I was doing it, and I think that really affected me mentally. because these people didn't know why I was doing this. And, you know, I think they had an idea by the time I left because I shouted it from the rooftops. But it definitely didn't help the situation. But after he was born, it was like an hour later, and I felt like a new woman. You know, I felt brand new. And
Because the
then,
sickness had just passed.
yeah, it just, the
Yeah.
nausea disappeared. No sickness, no nausea. I was able to go home and have a meal for the first time in over, like a proper meal for the first time in about 4 weeks. Not just snacks and, you know, mini cheddar here and there, or maybe like a lick of butter just to get some fat. Because that's the stage it got to. Like I was literally just licking the butter off the bread just for anything.
Yeah. I mean, that's no life, Laura. You can't survive on that.
No, no, it was
So
awful.
you've touched on it a little bit there, but how were you supported mentally and emotionally whilst you were considering the therapeutic termination, and when it actually happened, you had no mental health or emotional support whatsoever?
Nope, none. My GP was fairly supportive. He's an old style GP. He kind of he was happy to prescribe me whatever I asked for. And he just said, you know, like he openly said, I've came to the point now where I can't do any more for you. Like I've prescribed you what you need, and I'm happy to refer you to the hospital whenever you need. But he says that's all I can do for you. But when I went to the clinic for my scan, they basically just said, oh, I think because they knew I was thinking about termination, I felt like they were cold towards me, like, Luca, not just now. They were just almost like, well, why should we care when you don't care? And that's the feeling that I got. So they never really taught me through anything. They just said that there was obviously potentially things wrong. And then afterwards, I don't really think, I was just basically told that once I felt fine and once I was able to tolerate some food and drink, I was able to go home. Nobody gave me leaflets to counselling, or nobody gave me any numbers that I can call. They just basically said, see you later, all the best on your merry way.
But it all sounds so traumatic.
It wasn't the nicest of experiences, you know, and it's something that like I live with every day. But I feel like now I can use the experience to really empower other women who are going through that.
Yeah.
Because it's not an easy decision to make, and it's not the easy way out. But it is actually the easy way out for a lot of women with hyperemesis, and that's the sad thing. You know, why is it that is an easy way out?
Well, for a lot of people, it's the choice between that or suicide.
Yeah, and
you understand why that choice. It's not really a choice. It's not, in my mind, it's not really a choice.
No, it's not a choice, and you know, you almost feel like you're being bullied into it by your own body. You're being bullied into it by your own brain and by your body failing you. Effectively, is what it feels like.
So, Laura, what does it mean now that you are a volunteer? What does it mean to you to support other women as they are battling through their hyperemesis?
No, I love it. I love being a peer support worker. I love being able to use my experiences, good and bad, to support other women, because I didn't have that. You know, I had the support of my family and I had the support of my husband, but nobody truly knows what you're going through unless you've gone through it. And I will always advocate for that. Like, people can say, oh yeah, I felt a bit sick. Well, but did you? But did you really, you know? And I think it's just amazing that I can connect with these women on such a personal level. I'm a very personal peer supporter. Like, I probably tell my peer support, my ladies, far too much about myself and about my life, but I think that's what builds such a strong relationship with my ladies. And I love every single one of them, past and present. Some of them have ended in happy stories, some of them have ended in not so happy stories, but that's all part of the journey. And I'm just glad that I get to be there with them from the start to the middle to the end, through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's when I get these pictures of these babies being born, and I always knew they could do it, it's just amazing. I absolutely love it, and I hope that I never have to stop doing it.
I've got a quote here, actually, that somebody said. I don't want to embarrass you, but I've got a quote that somebody said about you. She said, "You have been a superstar all the way through, and without your help getting me here, I don't know what would have happened."
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, you're a superstar. And not only are you a volunteer, you're now also a mentor. So we have a mentor program that helps guide new volunteers through their first supports. So can you tell me a little bit about being a mentor?
Yeah, it's something that, like, when Tuesday approached me about it, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I could mentor. I don't know if anybody want me to mentor them, because everyone, like, peer support, and I find is really quite personal, and it's quite individualized, and there will be people out there who will just give the basic of support. So people out there who gives amazing supports. And I was like, but what if people don't like the way that I support? And for a while I was like, I don't want to be judged on how I support, because what if how I'm supporting is wrong? Because I was never given any training like the mentors getting out or the mentees getting out. I was basically just like, okay, you've done your training, like you've passed the test, and here's a lady, best of luck, and so I had to kind of find my own way. But now I get to see all of these new, like really excitable volunteers coming in, and they just want to do good things, and they want to help, and I get to flourish with them, because they teach me things and I teach them things, and I think it's a give and take, like they want to come in, they want to do their best, but they also want to provide the best support possible. And that's what I'm about. All I'm about is making sure that my ladies feel supported, they feel valued, and they feel like I actually get them on a personal level. Like I'm not just a person at the end of a screen, or, some random person that could be, some sort of like Eskimo in igloo in Alaska for all they know. And I think it's really important that the new volunteers coming in feel supported, and they know that we have this amazing network of people who are there for them, so that, when my time comes to hang up my supporting cloak, which won't be for a while yet, we have this new breed of lovely volunteers who can go forward. And, we did that. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I totally get the excitement when I speak to people that are considering becoming a volunteer or they've just signed up. The excitement to pay back the help that they've had, it's palpable, isn't it? People are just so excited to get on board.
Yeah, I never had that. Like I say, I never had a peer supporter. I never had really anybody to speak to about hyperemesis when I was pregnant in any of them. I only found pregnancy sickness support after I'd had Sophia. And that's when I was like, right, I'm going to do something. Like I can be a peer supporter, no problem. Like I can speak to people about it. And like I'm very passionate about it. And that's why I've decided to try and pursue a career more directly related, because I feel like I've got so much more to give and I want to make a difference. And it's going to be better coming from someone that's got a bit of power behind them, rather than just like little old me who goes about taking bloods all day. So I just think that I've got so much to give, and if I can give it to you guys, then I will continue to give it 10 times over, because I think it's so important, everything that you guys do. So,
well, Laura, the volunteering that you do is unbelievable. The difference that you're making to people's lives is huge.
I love it. And I don't even see it as like work or like anything like that. I don't even see it as volunteering. I just see it as me paying back. Like it's such a niche, having hyperemesis. It's like a niche little group, and I feel like if you can use that for the greater good, then why wouldn't you? Because me being in a group chat with somebody for the hard, even if it is only for the first couple of months, just to see them through that hard patch, and then you never hear from them again, I know that deep down, without me, they might have really struggled. And if the fact is that for me to send a couple of text messages a week in order to, lift someone up and just push them on that little bit further, why wouldn't you do that?
100%. And it makes such a difference. Like honestly, my little girl my eldest is only here because of volunteers like you.
Yeah, I love it.
I didn't think I could survive it, and without that peer support, I don't think I would have done. And she definitely wouldn't have.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The charity is amazing. Like we are all amazing.
Yeah. So, Laura, as we turn 20, have you got a message for pregnancy sickness support?
I just want to say thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to work with such an amazing group of people. You guys have opened up so many opportunities for me. You ignited my passion to try and become a midwife. I got to do my amazing speech at the London conference. The work that you guys do behind the scenes is incredible, and I am so glad that I get to be a part of it.
Well, thank you. We're absolutely honoured to have you as part of our charity, Laura.
I love it.
Well, I will let you get back to your evening. Thank you so much for joining me. It was lovely to chat to you, Laura.
You too.
If you or someone you love is suffering from hyperemesis or pregnancy sickness, please visit www.pregnancysicknesssupport.org.uk.